Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're talking about the spell Raise Dead.
What? Ah. This is a fifth level hour-long cast time for clerics and bards and paladins and grave domain and alchemists and a bunch of stuff. A bunch of people get this. You return a dead creature to life you touch, provided it's been dead no longer than 10 days. If the creature's soul is both willing and at liberty to rejoin the body, it returns to life with 1 hit point. The spell also neutralizes any poisons and curses. The spell also neutralizes any poisons and cures non-magical diseases that affected the creature at the time that it died. The spell doesn't, however, remove magical diseases, curses, or similar effects. If these aren't first removed prior to casting the spell, they take effect when the creature returns to life. The spell can't return an undead creature to life. The spell closes all mortal wounds, but doesn't restore missing body parts. If it's lacking body parts or organs integral for survival, its head, for instance, the spell automatically fails. Coming back from the dead is an ordeal. It's -4 penalty to attack rolls, saving throws, ability checks. Every time it finishes a long rest, the penalty goes down by 1, and this costs 500 gold per use because it has a diamond that's worth that much that is consumed in its material components.
Yeah, this is if you miss the window with Revivify, this is your next
You
best
raised
bet.
it. Yeah. So this is a reason to always have Revivify prepared instead of this. I'm sorry, I'm throwing things. The -4 penalty is miserable. And I think it is miserable in a way that doesn't feel like it's punishing for being raised from the dead. It feels punishing for you wanting to play the same character continuing, right? That's kind of the gist of the -4 to everything that I'm not a huge fan of. I get the premise of wanting there to be repercussions for actions. If we're in a system where at 3rd level that doesn't occur at all, it being a 5th level version that costs you 500 gold and still has the penalty, I find to be almost inexcusable. This spell should not have that text, I don't think.
I don't know. That doesn't bother me. I think maybe Revivify should have something like that. I mean, like you said, there should be penalties. Worst case scenario, you take 4 days off and whatever.
So when the alternative option is coming back with an entirely new character without the penalties, it feels weird, right? It feels like, well, I could have kept playing this game as a different character that wasn't penalized, or I could come back playing the character I wanted to play and that I've grown attached to and all those things with the penalty. And it ends up being the kind of circumstance, especially if you don't feel like your death was particularly fair, which is often kinds of solutions that Raise Dead offers, is it removes unfair death, that Revivify wasn't like cleric ran 3rd level spell slots or whatever. That is then a window where Raise Dead sort of comes into play. And it doesn't feel great whenever you're like, well, you overloaded the encounter. You know you overloaded the encounter, DM, but the Raise Dead spell just gives me the penalty anyway. And it doesn't feel justified, right? Like, if you die out of nowhere and Raise Dead is the only solution that's left on the table for you, it's like, wow, this feels crappy. I, for no reason, give -4 to all my checks now because my DM overloaded an encounter or had too much damage stacked in a specific window. I find it to be the juice isn't worth the squeeze, right? I get wanting to have penalties for death. I would argue it's more beneficial to have those penalties be narrative, have them be character growth, have opportunities for players and DMs within a story to account for being dead, and not necessarily attach penalties for players that want to keep rolling the same character again.
I don't know. I suck it up. Just
Bob, have you played a character with -4 to everything before?
I have not, but
It is
you know,
awful.
yeah,
You
it will
fail
be for a
so
little
many
while.
checks.
That sounds fun.
For your brand of character, maybe. For players that are taking the game a little bit more seriously, or players that are really invested in their archetype, their build, their ideas, their personalities, arbitrarily getting 20% weaker chances to do anything for
Not
4, like it gets
arbitrary. It's a
easier, but
penalty for having died and been brought back to life. I think that's reasonable and fair, and that's right. Yeah, the DM overloaded the encounter. Find a different solution or back away. Something, just maybe don't go charging into every encounter.
a
You know,
lot of these windows feels like, rocks fall, everyone dies, right? It feels like I didn't expect you to auto die from this, but you did kind of moment, right? Whenever you wanted to like maybe throw a warning shot as a DM, but you instead just outright killed somebody. That is the kind of windows of feels bad that I'm talking about here that happens fairly often, right? Especially with lesser experienced DMs. I'm just saying that if if I were new to D&D and I'm getting my character up to 9th level and by accident my character dies, right? Whether it's I made a stupid decision or my DM made a stupid decision, but I want to keep playing that character. And the only way I keep playing that character was if I had a -4 to everything. The next 2 or
For
3
a
sessions,
couple of
I'm just like,
days.
what am I doing here? Like, this is... I don't
You
think
can
it's
still
good game design. I think it is quite bad for the feeling of playing the game. And for a game that has almost no penalties to doing anything else, continuing to play the game should not include penalties. That's where I stand.
Nah, I don't. I disagree. I don't have a problem with this. This is like, all right. So you gotta be a little more careful for a couple of days. That's
It's not being more careful. It's you no longer are contributing to combats. You're no longer contributing well out of combat. You no longer are providing meaningful assistance. If you're a fighter and this happens to you, your entire character is just gimped. Imagine getting -4 to all of your attack rolls when it's all that you do.
that's not ideal. No, but
No, it's not. It's miserable. I cannot impress enough how miserable it is to play with -4 to hit, especially at 9th level, with -4 to all of your stats at 9th level. The odds of your character dying go way back up again, right? If you're still in a challenging dungeon, well, I don't know if it's worth continuing to play a character that can't hit worth a damn and has the chances of failing every saving throw are increased by a 4, right?
yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying. It could be less fun, or it could. I don't. It doesn't feel. I mean, it feels bad. Yeah, but I don't know that it's necessarily like fun destroyingly bad.
It is for a
Like,
lot of people.
I I feel it's the sort of thing where, like, all right, you get through those rough sessions and you come back with you're all better, and you're going to be that much more careful. You're going to take life that much. It's that much more precious to you now. Um,
But like you said out
you
prior,
make different decisions. Well,
Revivify does just exist though, right? Right. So like life still isn't really more precious. You just have to bank a 3rd level spell slot from here on out. It's kind of
yeah.
what this says.
Well, maybe that's a lesson for the cleric as well.
Commenters, I would love to hear your opinions on the raise that penalty. I think it's dumb. I think it should be done away with. Bob is more in favor of it. I also it's
I am,
gonna
because
vary.
the penalties you were talking about, like narrative and character development, that just seems like fluff that the the player's gonna wave away. Yeah. I learned a big lesson. Thanks.
Well, listen, there are ways to play around raise dead as a DM, right? So if you do have players that are running into situations over and over again, being headstrong, and you want to penalize them with death, right? If you shot the warning shots and they're not stepping down, removing their head is a really easy way to prevent a raise dead. Death can occur in a whole wide variety of ways in D&D, many of which don't leave remains. Fire breath doesn't necessarily have to leave remains. Being digested by ooze doesn't necessarily leave remains. Being dismembered in horrific ways. This is a game with all kinds of giant chain devils and whirling monstrosities throwing blades and stuff around. There are plenty of ways to permanently kill a character, or to kill a character in such a way that this is a penalty that you should have seen coming, that you are well aware is going to occur, that makes raid death not occur. We don't need -4 penalty for wanting to continue to play the game. That isn't a good reason.
You're talking about something different. You're talking about making it impossible to play the same character
Yes.
without 9th level spells and stuff. I'm this, at least with this, you have an option. You can.
The option is so awful. It's, again, I want you to put yourself in the position where you're playing a ranger, right? You're playing a ranger who knows the full casters are better at doing spell casting than them, and that knows that they're not necessarily as good as the fighter at most melee fights and most ranged fights even, right? And then you sit down for a month of gameplay, right? For a real life adults playing D&D month of your life, your character is arbitrarily worse at everything, and you want to keep playing. Like, it just feels bad. It feels like you disconnect. You get this. A lot of people disconnect. Some people really love it. There are a lot of players that genuinely, and I can be one of these players. I have genuinely had great times playing characters that have a 6 con. I think they're super fun. I love playing characters that have very distinct weaknesses that I acknowledge and I can play around and have fun with, right? Being a really dumb character, having a impossible to hit strength score, playing off the wall builds of, full caster paladins, that kind of stuff, right? There's a lot of fun to be had there for those kinds of players that want those challenges. There are the players that don't even mind things like feeble mind. That is not the majority, though, and this kind of penalty I do find to be rather harsh. we're still really just talking on the penalty. The rest of the spell, for your point, this is a way for a player to keep playing a character, right? This is a way that says you missed the window on Revivify. Would you like to keep playing this character? This is a way that lets that happen. If they don't get 4 consecutive long, if you can immediately then also get 4 consecutive long rests, like let's say you die in a climactic battle, those 4 consecutive long rests before narrative downtime remove this penalty altogether, and it's a non-factor, right? And there's no real more incentive, to your point, to say that, oh, well, I'm going to be more careful this time. Well, not really, because you got 4 rests and it just stopped being a problem. So that's
maybe between the players and the DM, you work out a middle ground. Maybe you got to keep struggling through the next 2 days, but then you find
the
nice
DM goes, oh wow, you've had a really miserable last couple of weeks, huh? We probably shouldn't have been playing with that to start with, is what that ends up being.
All right, and then you say, all right, well then you can rest for 2 days, and everybody's happy.
Sure.
This going in circles. I think we fundamentally disagree on this, and I don't think that's going to be resolved, and that's fine.
The neutralizing poisons and non-magical diseases isn't really text. Like, that doesn't really matter. 99% of the deaths don't incur that. So that's not really something to worry about. Not removing magical disease is kind of interesting. And is, like, hypothetically a reason to have a higher level version of this, but, like, not really. So, again, not really particularly impactful or interesting. Most of this is just an hour-long, 500 gold cost, bring someone back from death. Hopefully you get 4 rests after that. If you don't, sorry.
Yeah, maybe you front load the rest. You get 2 long rests, and then danger happens, and you have to go play with a -2 penalty or -1 penalty. It's not that bad. You can whatever.
There was a great game designer from the Designs Magic the Gathering that was talking about the fundamental shift in the design philosophy, where people just really hate playing with things that are inherently have downsides, right? Things that are worse for existing, things you have to like upkeep, things you have to pay exorbitant costs to be able to just use and do your stuff. This feels like it's in that space to me. But that's my personal gripes. I think this is a spell that probably needs to exist in some form. I don't love this version of it, but for that reason, like, this is a kind of thing that it announces a tier of play. Whenever you hit 9th level, raise that access basically means you can die. I don't have to have a 3rd level spell slot on it, as long as it's like a big narrative peak moment and we're going to have a couple days after it to not really adventure. For that reason, it's probably like a 3. It's not Revivify changes death as a concept big, but it is a pretty notable impact. Being able to long rest and prepare this and knowing that it exists is going to be important, and this is going to often just be like the easiest, cheapest way to get someone back from death, should that be something you want to do, as long as you, again, ideally aren't going to adventure for the next 4 days.
All right, or at least 3.
At least 3.
So get some rest. You've been dead. Don't push yourself. Despite our fundamental disagreement, I am going to have to agree with your assessment of 3 out of 5. So.
My fundamental disagreement is, like, is it fair or fun to have a -4 penalty on something? That doesn't really speak to, like, the scope of the existence of the spell. Most of the video was nitpicking. It still does something relevant.
But let that be a lesson to you all. Have a Revivify ready to go.
Yeah. Big climactic moments. 3rd level spell slot in the bank, please.
That was Raised Dead. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. Let us know, who do you agree with? Who do you disagree with? Both of us. What do you think? What do you think about Raised Dead? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.